You're listening to The Implanted Word with Pastor Bill Gim of Grace Church in Amarillo, Texas.
The Implanted Word, your word in me.
If we ended there, we would think we've got to go out and kill our giants. We've got to go out 14 years old with this faith and bravery and get her done like David. You got to be like David. That is not true. That is not the gospel. That's not the gospel. The gospel is someone greater than David has come to represent you, and he's already taken out the giants. So what are you afraid of? He already has the victory.
So what are you afraid of? In today's message, Pastor Bill teaches on the story of the shepherd boy David and his victory over the giant Goliath. David's faith and trust in the Lord outweighed any fear he may have had. Thankfully, God isn't asking you to slay any giants. Instead, he sent Jesus to fight the ultimate enemy on your behalf. Through his death on the cross and resurrection from the grave, Jesus defeated Satan and defeated death. Let your faith in him be your shield as you battle fear. Now, here's Pastor Bill in the book of 1 Samuel chapter 17 as he continues his message, Representational Fighting.
I turn from my ways into your love. Humble myself and accept your word. Your word planted in me is able to save my soul. Your word in me, the implanted word. Your word in me, the implanted word.
What are you afraid of? This thing might never be over. I'm afraid of the future. What future? Well, you know when it's going to get. By the way, nobody knows the future. I know the future from now. But nobody here knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Well, it's going to be really bad. You don't know that. It might be really good. You don't know. What are you afraid of? Because I'll tell you, the enemy's number one tool is to make you scared to where you can't even stand. And technically, he's already defeated. They were dreadfully afraid. So the men of Israel said, "Have you seen this man who has come up? Surely he has come up to defy Israel. And it shall be that the man who kills him, the king will enrich with great riches." Oh, there's a reward. "Will give him his daughter." Oh, there's a marriage. "And give his father's house exemption from taxes in Israel." Oh, you're tax exempt. I mean, it's so bad that Saul's just willing to bribe anybody, whatever it takes. If anybody can take him out, wow. Here's all the money. Here's my daughter. No taxes for you and your dad and forever. Interesting. Then David spoke to the men who stood by him, saying, "What shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine? Takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine?" By the way, I like the way that says that. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? You guys are all shaking in your sandals. They didn't have boots. They're shaking in their sandals. That's just an uncircumcised Philistine. We're Israelites. He's defying the army of God. Is anybody going to do something about this? The people answered David in this manner, saying, "So it shall be done for the man who kills him." Oh, it's all going to come down to one man, what I've been hearing him yell about. Let me get this word again. Representational fighting. So it's going to come down to one guy going against him. Do I have the math right? Can you see, David? So you're saying one guy coming down that takes him out ends the whole thing. Uh-huh. I'm your man. Only it would sound more like, I'm your man. You say, well, you don't know. Well, let me tell you, when you're 14 and you're going through all the stuff and you get that squeaky voice, you think my voice sounded like this back? It didn't. My voice didn't sound like this 10 years ago. But anyways, way back, David wasn't this big grown-up warrior guy. He's 14 years old. I'm your man. Now, Eliab, his oldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men, and Eliab's anger was aroused against David. And he said, why did you come down here? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and the insolence of your heart, for you have come down here to see the battle. And David said, what have I done now? Is there not a cause? Isn't this God's cause? What are you doing? Then he turned from him toward another and said the same thing. And these people answered him as the first one did. What's going on? Eliab, ticked off, angered at little bro. 7 of us are out here, nothing we can do. And you think you can do what? Why? He's probably jealous. I mean, he was there when Samuel anointed him, all that kind of stuff, skipped over the first 7. And yeah, but what does that mean? You play your harp up there for Saul when he's going crazy. What do you think that means? Then you think you can wander up with your cheese and your bread? Where are those few sheep? Can I tell you that his bros misunderstood? Obviously, he hadn't read 1 Samuel chapter 17. Like one of the greatest chapters in the Bible. So before you get yelling at little brother, you better know the whole story. And it's one thing if it's just Eliab, but then it's the other 6 brothers with them. And they start yelling at him too. Have you noticed in your battle with whatever enemy that brings fear into your life, that somehow the family around you doesn't get it and just makes it worse for you? Have you ever noticed that? Instead of coming together to help you figure out how to get through this deal, they start dogging you as well. Great. I just want to solve the problem. Now my family's messing it up. And then before you go much further, Saul's going to mess it up. I mean, David just wants to, tell me what to do. Now the words, verse 31, the words which David spoke were heard. They reported them to Saul. He sent for him. Then David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight this Philistine. Now, catch this. It's been 40 days, at least 40 days, morning and night, everybody shaking in their sandals, nothing they can do. Goliath's out there, his beard's growing, he's still slobbering somewhere, and he's calling out Israel. And there's nothing, but a 14-year-old kid shows up, bringing a sack lunch from his dad, and then what? I'm here to save the day. Matter of fact, that's what he says. He says, let no man's heart fail because of him. Everybody's scared. You don't have to be scared anymore. I'm going to solve it. Yeah, right. No, I will. Yeah, right. It's one thing when family dogs you, and then the older leadership dogs you. All you know is what God told you to do in your heart. That's all you know. The math doesn't make any sense. His age doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any sense except the hand of God on David. So what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? You know what fear does? 2 things. Fight or flight. You get really scared, you're either going to fight or flight. That's why you can't react to fear. Let no man's heart fail. You don't have to be afraid. Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant. I don't even have my driver's license yet, but your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. Saul said to David, you're not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him. For you are a youth, you're a boy. He's a man of war from his youth. You're a little shepherd boy. Go home, kid. By the way, the reason why word got to David so quickly, just so you know, because there ain't been nobody else volunteering. We're 40 days and you got nobody except David. But David said to Saul, your servant used to keep his father's sheep. And when a lion or a bear came and took the lamb out of the flock, I went out after it. I struck it, delivered the lamb from its mouth. And when it arose against me, I caught it by its beard and struck it and killed it. Your servant has killed both lion and bear. And this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, seeing he has defiled the armies of the living God. Moreover, David said, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. Man, David, he had a sermon ready. I know you don't believe me, but let me tell you what I've done. I might just be a kid, but a lion comes looking at my father's sheep, I'm taking that lion on. Now, I don't know, you guys watch the show Alone, you know, where they go out on an island somewhere, and they get out there. I mean, there's bears roaming around, there's mountain lions roaming around, there's all kinds of stuff roaming around. I mean, and these are grown-up men. You take a little kid, I'm not afraid of any lion, any bear. I'll grab that bear by its beard. Who are you? I'm doing it by the power of God. I'll treat Goliath the same as that bear, that lion. I'm taking him out. Man, you want a friend like that. Next time you get really scared, you want big moose. That's a good talk. The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of the Philistine, this Philistine. And Saul said to David, go, and the Lord be with you. So he became a believer, at least with the speech. Go, the Lord be with you. So Saul clothed David with his armor. He put a bronze helmet on his head. He also clothed him with the coat of mail. David fastened his sword to his armor and tried to walk, for he had not tested them. And David said to Saul, I don't think so. I cannot walk with this. I can't even move around, for I have not tested them. So David took them off. And if you can see, Saul's head and shoulders taller than any other Israelite. And there's David, 14 years old. And of course, right away, Saul thinks, okay, we need to get him ready for battle. Saul would say, he's dumb enough to go out there and try, so at least put some stuff on him. And then if you can see David, and clunk, 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 clunk. Great. Can't kill a bear or a lion, can't even walk. But he's smart enough to take it off. By the way, you have to figure out your own armor. Don't be wearing somebody else's armor. You got to figure out your own ministry. Don't be stealing from somebody else's. It's the Lord's armor that we put on. That fits everybody. But you have to figure out your own deal for your warfare that you're up against, like on a daily battle. Okay? Just so you know. You can borrow ideas from other guys, but you have to figure out your own. Or else you're doomed for failure. What we need is big moves. That's what we need. You're not bored yet, are you? You say, we already know the application of this sermon. There's no way you know the application of this sermon. Maybe you do. We'll see. For I have not tested them. So David took them off. Verse 40. Then he took his staff. David took his staff in his hand. And he chose for himself 5 smooth stones from the brook and put them in a shepherd's bag, in a pouch which he had. And his sling was in his hand. Great. What do you got? Some stones, a pouch, shepherd's bag, and a sling. That's all I need. That's all I need. By the way, people, you understand, well, why do you have 5 stones? Because Goliath had 4 brothers. You've heard that? I can't prove it, but anyways, it kind of works. Because all he needs is 1. You don't need 5. He's not going to miss. He's not going to miss. You know why? The target's really big, Goliath. I actually think it was harder for him having the conversation with his brothers and Saul than it was actually going in the battle. Just let me get my stuff and we'll go take care of business. That uncircumcised Philistine has to go down. So let's get it on. So out goes a boy, 14, with a slingshot. You couldn't make this story up. He drew near to the Philistine. So the Philistine came and began drawing near to David. And the man who bore the shield went before him. Great, it's 2-1. When the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him. For he was only a boy, a youth, ruddy and good looking. So the Philistine said to David, am I a dog that you come to me with sticks? The Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, come to me. I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. David said to the Philistine, you come to me. That really, I know they made movies of this and stuff. I'd really like to see the real thing on video. One day we'll tell David, okay, David, go back and how did you sound when you were 14, 15 years old? And you come to me with a sword, with a spear, with a javelin. But I come to you in the name. I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you've defiled. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you and take your head from you. And this day I will give the carcasses of the camp of the Philistines to the birds of the air and the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. You think I'm fighting for me? You think I'm fighting for Saul? Those scaredy cats over there? I'm fighting for the honor of God. Then all this assembly, all of them, shall know that the Lord does not save with sword or spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. God doesn't need a sword. God doesn't need a spear. God doesn't need a chariot. God doesn't need a nuclear weapon. God doesn't need you. So it was when the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, that David hurried. Can I hear you say hurried? Now that's the way to get up in the morning and shake off the fear. I just want to sit here and worry about it. Get up, get going. David hurried, and he ran. Can I hear you say ran? He ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. Then David put his hand into his bag, took out a stone. He slung it and struck the Philistine in his forehead, so that the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and struck the Philistine and killed him. But there was no sword in his hand, the hand of David. Therefore David ran and stood over the Philistine, took his sword, drew it out of its sheath, and killed him and cut off his head with it. Dun, 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 dun. See, if you're a fighting man, you love this story. It's got all the stuff. that makes us want to fight. Representational fighting. The victory is already won. David represents all of Israel. The war is over. Now you get to follow after David and get the plunder. When the Philistines saw that the champion was dead, they fled. Now the men of Israel and Judah arose, shouted, and pursued the Philistines as far as the entrance of the valley into the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell along the road of Shesharim, even as far as Gath and Ekron. Then the children of Israel returned from chasing the Philistines, and they plundered their tents. And David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put his armor in his tent. When Saul saw David going out against the Philistines, he said to Abner, he's the commander of the army, he said, Abner, whose son is this youth, this boy? Who is he? And Abner said, as your soul lives, O king, I don't know. I don't know whose dad is. So the king said, inquire whose son this young man is. Then as David returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him and set him before Saul with the head of the Philistine in his hand. I love that. Okay, the head of the Philistine, Goliath, is in the 14-year-old boy's hand. And Saul said to him, whose son are you, young man? So David answered, I am the son of your servant Jesse, the Bethlehemite. Now, wait a minute. That was predicted back in Ruth. Now, wait a minute. This representational fighting, he's got the victory. Everybody's got the victory. It's imputed to them. The war's over. I won it. You have to understand the whole counsel of the Word of God, because it doesn't end there. If we ended there, we would think we've got to go out and kill our giant. We've got to go out 14 years old with this faith and bravery and get her done like David. You've got to be like David. That is not true. That is not the gospel. That's not the gospel. The gospel is someone greater than David has come to represent you, and he's already taken out the giant. So what are you afraid of? He already has the victory.
The implanted word.
That's all we have time for today on The Implanted Word. We're so glad you joined Pastor Bill Gim to study the Bible verse by verse and chapter by chapter. Pastor Bill is currently going through a series called Book by Book, in which he is covering some things from the whole Bible, beginning to end. That might sound like a lot, or that it could be a daunting study. But there's some value in understanding the Bible and all there is to learn from each part of it. If you'd like to hear more from Pastor Bill, you can access his teachings by visiting theimplantedword.com. Simply look for the broadcast tab to find our audio archive. While you're there, you'll notice a Grace Church tab. This is the church behind the Implanted Word radio ministry. All the messages you hear from the Implanted Word are taught at Grace Church. And if you're interested in coming and hearing them in person, you're welcome too. We'd be happy to have you join us as we worship the Lord and learn from His Word. Here at Grace Church, we meet on Sundays at 9 and 11 a.m. and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Find directions and more information by visiting our website at theimplantedword.com. Otherwise, you can call us at 806-680-2820. Again, that number is 806-680-2820. We're live streaming our services as well. For those who aren't able to come in person, click on the Grace Church link at theimplantedword.com to join. Tune in next time to learn more from this book by book series here on The Implanted Word.
Your